When the grid dies for good, your local pharmacy turns into a dark, silent museum of everything you waited too long to buy. Picture this. The lights have been off long enough. That outage isn't cute anymore. The automatic doors at the drugstore are stuck halfway open, shelves half looted, and the only person writing prescriptions now is natural selection. Your doctor? Off the map. The nearest hospital? Just a tall building full of beeping corpses. This video is not medical advice for normal life. In normal life, you go to a real doctor. This is everything has failed, help is not coming, and doing something smart is better than doing nothing stupid. Here's the rule of the Wasteland. Pain is negotiable, death isn't. You don't need white coats. You need chemistry, improvisation, and a very dark sense of humor. So grab whatever's left of your sanity and let's talk about 10 medical supplies that can actually tilt the odds if you understand the science behind them instead of just throwing them at wounds and praying. Because in a collapse, prayer is a feeling strategy. Chemistry is a survival strategy. Supply number 1, honey. The same stuff you use to drizzle on toast is a quiet monster against germs. Real honey, especially the darker, raw kind, is a hostile environment for bacteria. It's thick, low in water, full of sugars that pull moisture out of microbes by osmosis. Think of it as turning the wound surface into a microscopic desert where bacteria dry out and stop throwing a party. Spread a thin layer over a cleaned wound, then cover with a bandage or clean cloth. It helps keep things moist enough for skin cells to grow, but dry enough that infection has a rough time. If it's crystallized, don't panic warm it gently in hot water until it turns smooth again. Diabetic? Now the trade-off gets brutal. Putting sugar on open skin is different from chugging it, but any use around large or deep wounds is something you'd want a real medic to manage in a sane world. In the Wasteland, you weigh possible sugar issues later against infection that eats your limb now. Supply number 2, high-proof alcohol. Not for the party you'll never throw again. For cleaning gear and, when you must, cleaning skin. You want spirits around 40% alcohol by volume or higher. Below that, you're mostly hydrating the bacteria and giving them a light buzz. At the right strength, alcohol messes with the outer coatings and enzymes that bacteria use to stay alive, basically unbuttoning them at the molecular level. Use it to wipe down tools, tweezers, needle tips, or the skin around not deep inside wounds. It stings like betrayal and dries tissue if you pour it on constantly. So think of it as a short, sharp shock, not a daily bath. And no, drinking half a bottle is not a sterile technique. That's anesthesia with a hangover. Supply number 3, plain salt. Table salt, rock salt, doesn't matter. Salt plus clean water equals saline, and saline equals the simplest, most underrated wound rinse on earth. 1 level teaspoon in a cup of clean water gets you close to body-friendly concentration. Too strong, and you'll chemically burn what you're trying to heal. Too weak, and it's just expensive water. Used correctly, it pulls fluid and gunk out of shallow wounds and helps wash away debris without making living tissue hate you. Same trick makes sense for gentle eye rinses if you somehow get grit or smoke in there and have nothing better. Supply number 4, duct tape. Not kidding. Fresh off the roll, the sticky side is reasonably clean, waterproof, and tough. That makes it a brutal but effective tool when nothing else exists. Covering improvised dressings, reinforcing splints, keeping bandages from slipping, even sealing punctures in plastic sheeting for makeshift isolation, duct tape is ugly medicine's best friend. In absolute last-ditch trauma, people have used plastic plus tape to create a one-way flap over chest holes so air can escape but not be sucked in. That's battlefield improv territory and insanely risky without training, but it's useful to understand why people talk about it. Air where it doesn't belong can crush lungs from the inside. Supply number 5, activated charcoal. Not barbecue briquettes. Actual activated charcoal capsules or powder. This stuff has a ridiculous internal surface area. Imagine an entire sports stadium folded into a teaspoon. Toxic molecules bump into it and stick, which is why hospitals sometimes use it in poisonings under medical supervision. In theory, if someone swallowed certain drugs or plant toxins in the last hour and you have no access to emergency care, charcoal might bind some of it before it's absorbed. But that comes with big warnings. It doesn't work on everything, can interfere with needed meds, and is absolutely not a toy. In a real-world emergency, poison control and doctors decide. In a Wasteland story, you at least know what it's trying to do. In the Wasteland, chemistry is just medicine that forgot its lab coat. Supply number 6, iodine solution. Iodine is like a tiny, angry fog that seeps into cells and rips apart the molecules life depends on. Diluted properly, it's one of the best broad-spectrum skin disinfectants we've ever had. Bacteria, many viruses, fungi all get wrecked. Use it to clean around cuts or prep skin before you do anything that even pretends to be surgery. There's also the whole nuclear accident angle. In real disasters, people take special iodine tablets so their thyroid glands get full of normal iodine and don't soak up the radioactive kind as much. Regular iodine solutions aren't a magic shield, but understanding that your thyroid is basically an iodine sponge helps you see why governments stock those pills. Full-strength iodine burns. Proper medical products are diluted for a reason. Never chug the bottle, never pour industrial strength on large areas unless the alternative is clearly worse. Supply number 7. Cyanoacrylate glue, the family of chemicals behind superglue. Under controlled conditions, medical versions of this stuff are used by actual surgeons to seal skin edges. The glue touches moisture, chains up into a solid plastic film, and holds things shut. In a Wasteland emergency kit, tiny tubes of regular superglue can, in theory, pull together small, clean cuts in places that don't flex much. But you need to respect the limits. Don't glue deep wounds closed. You'll just trap infection inside. Don't use on joints that bend constantly. Don't get it in eyes, mouths, or big, raw surfaces. And yes, it will weld your fingers together if you get cocky. Supply number 8. Aspirin. Under real medical guidance, aspirin is famous for making blood less eager to clot by blocking certain enzymes. In modern medicine, doctors sometimes use chewable aspirin during specific kinds of heart attacks, while more advanced care races to the scene. In the Wasteland, you don't have cardiology units or paramedics, but you might have a bottle of tablets. Huge caution flag here. Blood thinners are double-edged blades. They can also turn any internal bleeding into a nightmare. In the real world, you only do this under proper instruction. In our collapse scenario, know what aspirin does at the molecular level and that it isn't candy. Supply number 9. Hydrogen peroxide. Everyone's seen the foam show when this hits a cut. That fizz is oxygen coming off as the peroxide breaks down. The bubbles help lift dirt out of shallow wounds, which is why people love it. The problem is, it's also not gentle on the cells trying to knit you back together. So in a pinch, you might use a small amount once to flush a filthy scrape, then switch to cleaner options like saline. Long-term daily peroxide baths are more sabotage than support. Supply number 10. Cayenne pepper. Yeah, spicy powder on a wound sounds like a TikTok dare, not medicine. And to be clear, in normal life, you shouldn't do this. It hurts like betrayal and is not a standard first aid recommendation. But capsaicin, the compound that makes chilies burn, does trigger blood vessels to tighten up and can stimulate clotting. In some contexts, there are old stories of fighters and healers sprinkling ground pepper on cuts to slow bleeding when absolutely nothing else existed. Think of it as a myth with a biochemical footnote. Possible vasoconstriction, possible antimicrobial effect, guaranteed suffering. If you've got real bandages, clean pressure, tourniquets, or medical help, use those instead. In a world of rusty machetes and zero ambulances, it's a last resort. Here's the pattern hiding under all 10 items. None of this is magic. It's physics and chemistry playing out the same way they did before the grid died. Sugars pull water. Alcohol wrecks proteins. Salts shift fluids. Iodine oxidizes. Charcoal adsorbs. Plastic chains harden. When society collapses, the laws of chemistry don't ask for new permission. That's the good news. The bad news? Supplies run out. Band-aids mold. Bottles empty. If you only memorized use X for Y without understanding why, you hit a wall and stay there. But if you get the logic, you can improvise. No, honey? Maybe another high-sugar, low-water syrup gives some of the same osmotic kick. No commercial charcoal? Maybe carefully made, finely ground hardwood charcoal steps in if you know how it's supposed to behave and where it absolutely doesn't. This is why I keep hammering the same idea. Don't worship brand names. Learn mechanisms. Because when your beautifully curated first aid kit is nothing but empty plastic, the last thing you'll have left is your ability to reason through a problem. So here's your homework before the blackout. Talk to actual medical professionals while they still exist. Read credible sources. Learn which of these tricks are supported by evidence and which belong in the only with supervision or fictional Wasteland pile. Stock what you safely can, label it clearly, store it dry and cool, and rotate it before expiration becomes more than a suggestion. And when the lights finally stay off, remember this. The best medical supply you own is the brain between your ears, if you trained it. If this breakdown lit up a few survival neurons, hit like, subscribe to Wasteland Badger, and show it to that one friend who thinks Winds of Thought is just a mood, not a skill set. Because out there, the only good patient is the one who's still breathing and still moving. Dead patients don't watch YouTube before or after the fall. Can you convert this whole detail into an idea?